Welcome to the fastest stop in town. Today we're Nedarim Daf Lamed Tes. We are going to begin on Lamed Chesamad Beis by the Mishnah at the bottom. Masnisan Hamudar Hano Mechavero. So a person made a neder not to derive benefit from his friend. We're going to see which person. V'nichnas l'vakroi, and this person is sick. So are you allowed to visit this person? Again, it's going to be questionable who is the one who made the neder on whom. So the din is, in the Mishnah, Oimid Avolo Yoshev. You could visit him standing, but you're not allowed to sit down. Merapoi Refuas Nefesh, and you could wish him for Refuas Nefesh Avolo Refuas Mamoin, but not monetary. So for whatever reason, that is something which is allowed. A Refuas Nefesh is allowed, but not Refuas Mamoin if there's a monetary loss. Now, right out of the gate, if we look at question 9, Hayu nichsim avakar asurin al chayla him nichnas avakar oimid or yoshev amadua. So psak halach on the ran. So it just tells us straight that oimid is mutter and yoshev is aser. But we'll have to understand exactly what that means. So let's see the Gemara on Lamed Tesamad Alf. B'ma'askina. What exactly is this coming to talk about, as the Rashi says, that in your nichnas lavakra, you're going to visit the sick? So, bishin nichse mavaker, is it that the possessions of the one who is visiting is asurin al chayla, is forbidden on the sick person? In other words, the healthy person said, I do not want to derive any benefit from this person, and that person got sick, so you can go visit this person. Afil yoshev nami, l'chayra, even if you're sitting, it's also okay, because you're not getting any hana really from him. You're the one that's doing him the favor. You're being nice to him. So why is it that we would say he only can stand, he can't sit? Again, if we're talking about that the nichsim avakir, the visitor's possessions is usher on the chola, he's not giving him anything. So the chola is not receiving anything, so l'char should be mutter. Says the Ran, the oimed my time is shorisle. Why is standing allowed? Mishum de mavakir mitzvah denashiyov, because you're just doing a mitzvah. So unihi de chayla mishani mamela shari. Even though you would think, well, 1 second, isn't this chayla getting hana? The fact that this guy's visiting him, kivan shekain, it's happening mamela. It's like an indirect hana. It's not a direct hana. Therefore, it's mutter. If that's the case, if it's mutter to stand, then it should be mutter to sit. If we're talking about a situation where the nichsi chayla, that the sick person is asur in al mavaker, is asur on the mavaker, that the sick person cannot get hana from the mavaker, that shouldn't be allowed at all. Afil oimid namilo, says the Ran, shahari nehen nebedrisas haregel. The fact that he's going into his property, that's hana. So the fact that the nichsi chayla said, my possessions are usher to you, this guest, so the second you walk into my house, you're getting hana because you're walking in my property. So let's make sure I said it properly. Mamanushach. If we're talking about the possessions of the mavakir, of the guest, the one who's going to visit, says, my possessions, I'm going to visit you, the sick, my possessions are usher on the chola, so it should always be allowed. However, and if you say, well, I'm giving this guy hana by me going to him, but that's only mamela. So if it's mutter because of that to stand, it should be mutter also to sit. However, if you want to say the other way around, that's a nixi choyla. It's the possessions of the chola's aser. The nixi chola includes his house. So how is this guy allowed to go into his house? Well, even standing shouldn't be allowed. So Amr Shmuel, Gemara gives 3 answers. We're talking about a situation, what was the neder? That the possessions of the mavakir, so again, let's say I'm the person visiting the sick, my possessions are usher onto the chola. So in that situation, it's the hana that I'm giving him by going to visit him is only mamela. So therefore, l'chayra, I should be able to sit down. So on this, the Gemara says, because there are ways in which a person actually is compensated. If a person sits down while they're being mevakar choil, which is a more substantial visit, so they actually are compensated for that. So therefore, we don't allow him to sit, because if he's sitting, we say that the nichse mevakar is aser on the chola. So he's not allowed to sit, because otherwise he's supposed to be compensated. So what's the problem? So he's going to stand and not be compensated. So what's the big deal? He's sitting down and he's being compensated. So again, the nichse mevakar, the possessions of the guest, are aser onto the chola. So again, in this situation, if you pay, so therefore that's why it's aser. So my paska, so hakamash, when the apa makam shenaitan sachar is coming to tell you, even if there is payment, al yeshiva boy lemishkol, it's only when you're sitting down. El mida lo boy lemishkol, you don't get paid for standing. Okay, so let's look at the Ran. The Ran says, the afil b'makam shenaitan sachar al hayeshiva nearly the hachi perusha the ikuduchti. There's sometimes shechmiru al atzmi, you can be strict. Shal yitul sachar, you don't want to take payment. Afilim yeshiva, even while you're sitting down. Alpha pishu muta, even though you're allowed to accept compensation for sitting down to mibavakar chayla, mishum the mitzvah speaker dailo b'yamida, because you're not really taking money for doing a mitzvah, because the whole mitzvah is really just being there and includes standing. So the fact that you're sitting down, so you're allowed to get paid for that, because that's above and beyond what the mitzvah actually is, says the Ran. But feel hachi kadei shul yavolito sachar lamida. So a person doesn't come to the level of potentially getting reward for standing. Hechmir al atzman shul lito sachar apal yeshiva. He says, I'm not going to get paid even for sitting. In those places, ben oibe ben yoshev shari the yeshiva nami lididhu mitzvah, because according to them, sitting is also part of the mitzvah. It's coming to tell you that even if a person is not strict, a person's not allowed to take money for standing. The mitzvah ka'avid. So while he's standing, you're not allowed to take money for that, because you're doing mitzvah. So therefore, you're allowed to stand, even though a neder was made. But not yeshiva, you're not allowed to sit down, because a person would be compensated for that, and therefore hana is being received. Okay, that's answer number one. V'iboy seima Rav Shimon ben El Yaakov. What did he say? We'll see that later on Daf Mem Beis. Gezer Shem Yisha Ba'amida. We're afraid that you may end up having a lengthier visit, beyond the scope of time to be mekayim the mitzvah. So only then is there a chash when sitting. So hachinam gzer shem yisha b'yeshiva. So we look in the Ran. The Ran says shem yisha b'yeshiva yosem michdei chatzarich, that you were sitting there more than you needed. We're not concerned if you're standing. Shem yisha, that you're going to delay. Since you have to stand, yis le hakera. So there's a hecker. The fact that you're standing, you're not going to end up staying there for an extended amount of time. You sit down, there's a greater likelihood of that happening. And on the shihiyah, on the delay, a person is compensated. Ulmer, he says, it's b'shenichse chayla surin al mavakir. Actually, we're talking about a situation where the nichse chayla, we're talking about a situation where the possessions of the chayla, of the sick person, are aser al hamavakir. So the question is, if that's the case, then why is he allowed to go into the house? Because he's getting hana through drisas aragel. Kagain delo ahadre min chayusei. It's referring to a situation that when you're visiting, that is considered to be a life essential thing. And therefore, when he made the neder, it was not for this. So therefore, he could enter his home. It was not part of the cheshbon, because it's part of the understanding that when a person is sick, you need someone to visit. And therefore, when you made the neder, certainly you did not include this. And therefore, Teresa's regular is mutter under these circumstances. So let him sit down. If in fact it's not part of the neder. The answer is you're right, but the reality is he could be standing. So if you can be mekayim the mitzvah by standing, so we don't want you to sit. Okay, look in the Ran. Kolemer de mistabra chayla ki hadri l'mavakir lo hadri b'milsa tzrichale. They don't keep in the neder things that they need for themselves. Because someone who's sick does enjoy the fact that he has a visitor, and therefore that's not part of the cheshbon. Okay, question 14 TA 14. Hamoider hana mechavero. Why aren't you allowed to sit down? So either you can't sit down because it's b'makom shenoitel schar al yeshiva, because you're actually paid for sitting down, or gazera shemiyisha b'yeshiva. The concern is you may end up staying extra time while you're sitting down, and that's where the problem potentially arises. Okay. Fine. Let's see, maybe one more question over here. Question TB15. If the nichse chayla, the possessions of the sick person, is also in the mavaker, how do we allow this? So this is what I wrote. We say in the Mishnah to only visit while standing, but not sitting, because either you get paid for sitting, or even in a place where you don't get paid, still we're afraid you may delay in your sitting. Let's see what's written over here. So the answer that they're looking for 15 is just clean. Mutter lamoid, you're allowed to stand. V'yeshiva oilum aser u'shmul matir. Okay, so it's not so clean that's exactly what was being asked over here. Okay, right. Fine. TB15. Okay. And let's just see one more question. Question 9. The nichse mavaker is also onto the sick person. So again, the Mishnah says standing is mutter. Since you have to do it for free anyway, you're doing a mitzvah. And therefore, if you're sitting, that already is above and beyond. That's hana. So that's why yoshiv is aser. Even if you don't get paid, you still may end up delaying and staying for an extended period of time. So these are all similar questions and answers. Fine. Let's look at question 10. This is the other way around. If the nichse chayla surin al mavaker, him nichnas mavaker oimer yoshev. So again, you're supposed to, standing is mutter, and why? So adare chaylu mavaker, that when the sick person made the neder, he wasn't having in mind someone visiting him, but nonetheless we still want him to stand. Yoshev, we don't, because he could tactically get away. Sitting he doesn't allow, maybe because he could just stand. It says neder mavaker atzma min chayla ein nichnas levaker klal bein oimid bein yoshev. If the neder is mavaker atzma min chayla, fine. Okay, so that is a similar type of a question. That was question 10. All right. Okay, let's continue. The Gemara asks the following question: Meisvei cholahu. If let's say a person is sick, nichnas levakroi, you can go and visit him. Cholah beno, but let's say the man's child is sick, then shol b'shuk. You can basically just ask his welfare in the marketplace, but you're not able to actually go and visit him. Now, on this, the Gemara says, according to him who says that we're talking about a situation where the possessions of the sick person is usher on the guest, so it makes sense, he shouldn't be able to go in there. How is Drisas a regular allowed? So it's allowed for him, who could go into loy adre min chayusa, shaper. Maybe the neder wasn't applied to him because he said, if I'm sick, I want you to come and visit me. But maybe not for his son's illness. He may have made the neder on this too. El Shmuel di'armer b'shenichsim avakar asurin al chayle ma'ishnahu ma'ishna b'no. What's the difference if it's him or the son? So Amalach Masnisin, our Mishnah is b'shenichsim avakar asurin al chayle. Our Mishnah, according to him, is a case where the possessions of the of the visitor is also in the chayle. However, Bryson b'shenichsi chayle asurin al mavakar. So therefore, you're right. It has to be, we're talking about this particular situation that where the father, or the chayla, was who said, you can't get any hana from me, this person who's visiting. But again, it wasn't part of his neder. But that's only when it comes to him being sick, but not his child. So now the Gemara just wonders, my pascha, why do we make this statement? Why would we think that's the case? So Amar Rava, Amar Shmuel, it says, because Masnisin, the reason why we split this, because we continue on Testament base, Masnisin Kashise. We have a difficulty in the actual language, in the diuk of the Mishnah. So my area, the Tani Oy made of Yeshiv, why does it say stand and don't sit? Shema Minad, the Nichsim Avakar, Surin al Chayla. It must be talking in a situation where the nechasim of the visitor is usher on the sick person. And therefore, because of that, he's only allowed to stand. Amrish Lakish, fine. So let's look in the Ran. It says, Inyan halacha kaimon kishmul. We actually paskin, even though it's a machlokas, we hold like the opinion of Shmuel, which is the first opinion, that v'makom shenetin schar al yeshiva v'netin schar al mida, hilkach b'shenechsi chayil asurin, when the possessions of the sick person are asur al hamavakir, on the person who is on the visitor, nichnas avakra, he can still visit him. If you'll yoshiv, technically even sitting, the yeshiva nami chayusa dechayilhu, having him sit down while I am sick, it's something which is okay. V'lo adre dehachi nichle of a chayil beno yichnas lebesu klal. When it comes to your son being sick, that guy cannot visit you at all, because that was part of the cheshbon. Skipping a few lines, the heichen and nichsim avakar asun al chayle. Let's say in a situation where the possessions of the mavakar are usher onto the chola, nichnas levakro, he's allowed to visit oimed mishum demuchayiv lasos bechinam. He has to do it for free. Lo mitzvah di delekov, he's doing a mitzvah by visiting him. Lo idach, going more, sitting down, which is not part of the mitzvah, memelo komishani, you're getting hana. Avlo yoyshim befil bim koimis the machmirin al atzim shloito sachar. I feel on yeshiva mishum gezer shemihisha b'yeshiva. So this is all we've been saying before. Even if you're not paid for sitting down, but we're concerned that you may end up staying there longer than the mitzvah. You don't have to stay there too long. If you stay too long, then all of a sudden there is an issue of the hana kicking in. Okay, fine. Right. So Amar Reish Lakish, Remez lebikar choyim and atar b'nayin. How do we see a hint to visiting the sick from the Torah? Shenemar, the answer is it's found by Korach. It says the following pasuk: Im kamais kol adam yimusin neileh. If all these people would die in a natural, normal fashion, then uvekudas kol adam v'gomer, and people will end up visiting them. So that's what it's talking about. And he said, instead, let there be a sign that the grounds will open. My mashma summer Rabbi im kamois kol adam yimusin neileh. If these people, the Karach, the Adas Karach rather, they'll die a normal death, shein chaylin umutalin berisasan, and they'll be like in their carriages, they'll be lying in their beds. Uvenei adam avakrin oisam, the Moshe says, therefore people have to visit them. Ma habri oisamrim, what will the visitors say? Lo Hashem shulchani lazeh. They're going to end up saying that it wasn't because of Hashem. It was rather, they died of natural causes. It's not because they did anything wrong. Dorsh Rav im bria yivra Hashem, if Hashem creates a new creation. Im bria gehinnom, if Hashem already who creates Gehenna, mutiv tiyah, it'll be good. Imlav, but if Gehenna isn't created yet, Yivra Hashem, will Hashem actually create it for them? Eini, what do you mean if Gehenna wasn't created yet? We know it was created. There's 7 things that preceded the earth. Elohein, Torah, Tshuva, Gan Eden, Gehenim, Kisei HaKavod, Beis HaMikdash, U'Shmo Shel Mashiach. So, Bris Olam represents time. So if all these things preceded time, it represents eternality, something which is forever, which you can understand. The concept of Torah is eternal, wasn't created. It was created before the world. Tshuva, repenting, which has to do with Schar Noinish, which is Gan Eden, Gehenim, fine. Torah d'chsev Hashem kanani reishis darka v'layra. Tshuva d'chsev b'terem horim yiladu v'tchaylil goymer. Tashiv enoish, person will dwell adaka until the pulp, the goymer. Gan Eden d'chsev v'yita Hashem akin gan be'eden mikedem. They created this gan from before, the goymer. Gehinum d'chsev ki orach me'esmoil tifta, that from the length, from before, tifta, from incitement. Kisei kavod d'chsev nachain kisacha mi'oz, from then. Beis HaMikdash d'chsev kisei kavod Mona Marishon Shmoy Marishon Shmo Shel Mashiach d'chsev hi shmo le'oil v'goymer. So what do you mean? Gehenna was already created. El ha'chakamer I ivri le puma. If there's going to be an opening for Gehenna right there where we are, motive good, will open up and kill them. If not, let Hashem create the opening. There's nothing new under the sun, so Hashem wouldn't create that. If it's here, you don't need to bring it close. However, if let's say it's not so close, then Hashem should bring it close. So it was already created. But it means that if the opening of Gehenna is in here, let Hashem bring the opening closer. Dorish Rava. So therefore, clearly, Gehenna was already created before. So Dorish Rava Yermila Amrav Yitzchak Ma'nechsiv Shemesh Yareach Amad Zavula. The sun, the moon will stand in its abode. Shemesh Yareach Bezvul Tomai Ba'ayin V'ha B'Rakia Kiviyeh. What do you mean? It's in the Rakia. That the sun and the moon went up from the Rakia to Zvul. If you do judgment, din, to Moshe, onu me'irim, then we're going to give light. But if not, then we are not going to give light. So even the sun and the moon stood up on Moshe's behalf, that Kairach should be stopped. If you look in the Ran, Shiva Devarim Nivru Koidim Shibra Oilam She'efshul Oilam B'Loheim. It means that the world is not shaykh without them. It's not possible that the world can endure even a second without them. So Gehenim is created for the sake of the wicked. So in order to be able to have a world, all these things had to predate the world, because all these things are integral for the functionality of the world to exist. There were these swords and spears and weapons. They bowed down to idol worship, and you shine the light. And you shine light. For my own honor, you didn't protest. Now you have all these people that were worshiping idols, and the sun and the moon didn't say anything. So, all of a sudden now you're sticking up. How about the dignity and honor of God? You're concerned about the dignity and honor of Moshe. They would shoot at these arrows. And he would still give out light. Okay, so basically Hashem's saying that maybe you shouldn't have spoke this way. Says the Ran, that he said, you should make sure that Moshe's tefillos are answered. And if not, we're going to shine anymore. And Hashem said, I don't understand. You never complained before about the way I was treated, and all of a sudden being concerned about Moshe. Tanya, Bikr Chayim ein Loshir. Bikr Chayim, there is no measurement. So on this, Rashi says, the mitzvah b'katan k'moy b'gadol. It doesn't matter if you're young or old or very important, you still should visit the sick. So my ein Loshir. So Rav Yisrael in shir l'matan sachara. Maybe it means that the reward that you're going to receive is so much that it's beyond boundaries. So b'chol mitzvahs mi yeshir l'matan scharon. Right? We know the all mitzvos, but we don't say that there's a particular measurement. But Tanan, as is in Pirkei Avos, Havizar b'mitzvah kala, kibachamor she'enatu yodem l'matan scharon shel mitzvos. We don't know how much the reward is. So how can we say ein Loshir? We don't know what the measure is for anything. El Omer Baya feel gadol etzel katan. As Rashi said, even a gadol should visit a little kid, and that shouldn't matter. Rabbi Omer feel mei pamim b'yoyim. Even if you visit 100 times in one day, you have to keep visiting. There's no end. Actually, you can remove 1/60th of that person's sickness. The fact that you're there comforting them, it makes them feel a little bit better. So if that's the case, I have great advice. So just get 60 people to come and the guy will be healed. 60 times 160 is 1. He'll be healed. So Malay, no. It's similar to B'Siyarsa Debei Rabbi. The 10th of Bei Rabbi. Says the Ran, Shekol Achas Notelos Isura Menachasim. So a girl, when she gets married, she gets 10% of the possessions. So over there, does that mean that once there's 10 girls, there's nothing left? No. It means the first one gets 10%, and then the next one, there's 90, so they'll take 10% of what's left, which will be 9. There'll be 81, etc. So that's the case. So too, when it comes to a chayla, every person does a lot, but the first person makes the biggest difference. Debei Rabbi uven giloi. It's referring to a ben giloi. And on this, Rashi says, Bachar kamoiso zaken l'zaken, someone who is like the same age, someone that basically can relate to the sick person. This time, Rabbi Omer, Bas Hanizainis Menichse Yachin. If you have a daughter that wants to collect Mazonos from the possessions of the brothers, Notelos Isin Achasim, they get 10%. She gets 10%. And below, Rabbi, Veracha, Mi, Shieshel, Eser, Banais, Ubain. If they have 10 daughters and a son, Enel Ubain, Makam, Banais, Kuam. Because each one gets 10%. If there's 10 girls, that's it. There's nothing left. Normally, no. This is what's explained. Rishayna no tell us this in a chasim. She'll get, let's say there's 100, she'll get 10. Shniya b'mash shayra, whatever's left. Shlish is b'mash shayra. V'chayzras v'cholkos b'shav. They divide everything equally. Okay. Rav Chelbo cholosh. Rav Chelbo was sick. Nafak, he went out, and Achras Rav Kahana, and he made an announcement, basically to let people know he was sick, as we continue Daf Mem. Rav Chelbo b'ish lo ikat deka asi. So he was actually boyish. Rashi says he was sick, and there was no one that came to visit him. He was all by himself. This was Rav. So Amru, they said, Lo kacha yamaisa b'talmid echad. There was a story with one student, Talmid Rabbi Kiva Shechola. Rabbi Kiva was sick. No one came to visit him. No one visited the student. Rabbi Kiva visited him. All of a sudden, Rabbi Kiva noticed that they needed to sweep up. The place was a little bit messy, so he started picking up things and cleaning things, and that caused him to live. Or Malay said, Rebbe, Hachisani, you have given me life. Yatz Rabbi Kiva Darsh, Kol Mish in Mavakar Chaylim, Kil Shevech Damim. Any person who does not visit the sick, it's comparable that you're over shvichas damim, because you're holding back this person from the ability to live. Because I know firsthand I was able to cause this person to live. Okay, let's see if there's any. I'm going to stop there. Adka.